Hi, I'm Cynthia Delatorre. I'm with Public Affairs with the Red Cross here in Las Vegas. We are at the Silver Mesa Recreational Center. Typically this is where we would house clients or members of the community in case any disaster were to happen. Today we're going to go behind the scenes as to how a disaster shelter is set up, what kind of elements a disaster shelter has, and all of the people involved, including actors that help simulate situations to prepare our staff and volunteers for the real life situations that might go on in a shelter. Okay, we're here with Kara, and Kara is our disaster program manager. So what we're doing here today is a disaster shelter exercise. So I want to ask you, Kara, what does the exercise consist of?
What we do in the shelter exercise is we establish 2 locations across the valley to equip a 200-person shelter at both locations in order to support any evacuation or a sheltering situation under emergency circumstances.
Okay. And what kind of emergencies, disasters do we typically have in Southern Nevada that we prepare for?
Well, we prepare a lot for flooding because that's our major threat, but we're also preparing for earthquakes because we are on the fault line. So that's traditionally what we focus on the most.
Being that we have this disasters, does each disaster have a different type of different types of needs that they have, or is it just everything, a shelter just consists of everything that any type of disaster would need?
Well, we have a twofold process. So there is an evacuation shelter, which is just to evacuate. We're not going to house anybody for 48, 72 hours, but a shelter in place, or what we are establishing today, is where we house people for a length of period until they no longer need a shelter. How
many shelters have we opened in the past year in Southern Nevada?
In the past year, we've opened approximately 4 shelters, and those were due to fires. The Carpenter 1 fire, we did open a shelter for that, and as well as some flooding in one apartment complex that resulted in a lot of displaced people. So we had to open a shelter for those individuals in the community.
So home fires typically are the most frequent here that you're going to open a shelter for?
Yes, so our biggest threat on a daily basis is our home fire campaign. So anytime that there is a large-scale fire, any more than 7 units, any more than 30 people, we're going to open up a shelter for those individuals.
When a person comes in to register, what can they expect to find?
So whenever a client comes into the shelter, they register, and then they meet our staff, and they get a short briefing about the shelter rules. They come in, they get assigned a cot and a space, and it is broken up by families, male, female, and single folks. So we assign them a bed space, we give them a comfort kit. Comfort kit consists of just shampoo, razor blades, toothpaste, washcloth, that kind of thing. And we get them settled in so they can get comfortable.
So how about those that have their pets? Because, everybody loves their pets. Is it pet friendly?
We do authorize service animals only, and we do have a section in each shelter for service animals. But if anybody has pets that they have with them, say in their vehicle, we do have an agreement with the Humane Society in Clark County, and we have them on standby for assistance with those.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you.
I'm here with Heather, who's with Disaster Services, and she's going to take us through the entire process as to what somebody coming in would have to do to stay at our shelter. Okay, you ready, Heather?
I'm ready.
Okay. So let's go ahead and...
We actually start at the front.
Oh, okay.
And so they'll come in the front door, and we'll have a greeter to give them basic information about what's going to happen here and kind of observe the person and see if there's anything that we catch that the staff needs to know about. And then they go over to the registration table. For this purpose, the people in the yellow vests are the clients. Okay. So the clients are standing here and they're going to register. We're going to get some basic information on them, and are they single, married, are they with a family? We give them some handouts as to what is going to happen in the shelter, some safety information, and some rules. And we do have rules that will be posted all around the shelter, because to keep things calm and orderly, we have to follow some instructions. So after the registration is done,
Well, first with the registration process, what kind of information would you expect to fill out?
it's basic information, name, if they came with a family, what their address is prior to the disaster. And that's just about it for now. If they have any special needs, do they need some medical care? Do they need medical equipment like walkers that they weren't able to bring? And we make arrangements to get those kind of things. We help them if they do need medications. Those kind of things that are kind of out of the ordinary, that we need that information. And that's about the basic for the registration table.
So just to be clear, we don't ask about citizenship or anything like that.
No, there's no citizenship question. Everybody is welcome. Everybody who walks up to the front door and says they need help, we give it to them. We don't ask them, where were you, or were you really in the disaster area? That doesn't matter. If they're here for help, they'll be welcome.
And you said that you also talk about if they need medications. So is there medical on site?
Oh yes, we have a nurse, we have social workers, we have spiritual counselors, and usually we only have one of each because we need to spread our people to all the other shelters too. But yes, we have people here for just about every contingency.
So this is our registration table. So we'll go on over here and then go through to Heather. Tell me the scenario that is going on right now. We have actors that are actually kind of simulating certain situations that might happen.
Absolutely. When they come in the door and they talk to the greeter and get the basic information, the greeter will direct them to come over here to the registration table. Then they register the fact that they're here, and then we have them sign a piece of paper with some information if they're going to stay in the dormitory. People are not required to stay here. They can come here for meals, and depending on the disaster, some people actually go to work, come back for meals, or go to work and stay in the shelter. So they can come and go as they please. They don't have to stay here. So we give them some handouts as to what is going to happen here, some information about what the rules are for living here and being in a communal kind of situation. So this is an important step here because we do a lot of triaging from this point.
So there are certain situations that you practice for, is what I understand, that the volunteers and the staff practices for, as far as somebody coming up for maybe they're missing their child or something like that happens. Do you practice for anything like that with the actors right now?
What we do, yes, is from A to Z. So it doesn't matter what kind of disaster that you have, it's all the same. You start with the greeters, and then you end up with having them in a dormitory and knowing about how to be fed. We do have something called Safe and Well, and they fill out an information sheet if they're looking for a family member or a family member is looking for them. They fill that out, and then they go over to our computers, and they're registered in the computers, so people can go on the website and see if their family member is listed there. And again, that's not mandatory either. That's totally voluntary if they want to provide their information. And any information is private. We don't have them give us any information that they don't want shared, other than we need to know at least a first name, and a last name would be good, but we try and keep everybody safe and secure and information private.
So these are actors, correct?
Yes.
And they're kind of simulating a registration, yes. So we're able to...
Yeah, these are our actors, and they are from the Red Cross Club, and then these are actual volunteers, Red Cross volunteers that are doing the registration. Then what they need to do is come over to the dormitory, and we have an escort sometimes when people are all shaken up, they kind of get lost in the shuffle. So we have someone that will take them directly to where they need to go, and this will be to the dormitory where we have a manager who will register them and assign them to beds. This is a typical setup right here. A person would get a cot. They'll get a pillow, a blanket, and then we have what's called a comfort kit, which has toiletries, things that they need right away and certainly couldn't have brought with them after the disaster hit. We have a men's area, we have couples, families, women, separate areas, and there'd be all these cots and they'd be labeled so that we can have a chart, a location chart that we know which family is in bed A, bed C, bed D, which client is all in what bed.
So if clients come in with their personal belongings, is there a limit to personal belongings that you can take, or can they bring them with?
Well, normally when the people are leaving a disaster, they don't have a lot of time to grab large items. They can take what they have and they put it underneath their cot. If they do come with larger or a lot of items, we would have to put that somewhere else because it's very tight. We would have quite a few cots in here. So, and for this area, we're expecting 200 people is how many we can handle. So we're in a regular gymnasium and we're going to put 200 people in here. So it's going to be close quarters.
So I see that there's women's dorm and then family, so they're divided?
Yes, yes, they are divided.
And so is it women's, men, and then family, or?
It'll be different in every situation, depending on the dorm manager, how they do it, and depending on the size of the facility and how that is laid out. That's up to them to manage the area.
And then I hear that we also accept service dogs, correct?
Yes, service dogs are always welcome, and we would need to put them out of the general area because people might have allergies, those kind of things, but absolutely service dogs are welcome. And sometimes people do have pets, and depending on the situation we try and make arrangements. One of the things is we try and locate some veterinarians that might have some shelter area that the pets can go there, because we can't have a lot of cats and dogs in here. Safety, allergy, that kind of thing. Or we may have an area right outside of the shelter that we might be able to put some animals. But that has to be a special situation, case by case, for pets.
Okay, so this is where the actual housing takes place?
Yes.
Okay.
Right in here.
Okay, so we're going to move on over to feeding?
Sure.
Okay.
Here. This is going to be our feeding area. A little dining area, and if at all possible, we have an area that would be like a kitchen.
Does this place have a kitchen?
I don't believe it does because I haven't seen one set up. So we have everything right here. We have different restaurants and things that bring hot meals in. We also have water and snacks available 24/7. So people can come back here any time of the night or day and get something to eat and drink.
Wonderful. So typically there are restaurants that donate hot food, so it would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yes. And it could be sandwiches. It doesn't necessarily have to be hot food, but we do get hot food for people as much as possible, but sandwiches too.
Okay, well, thank you, Heather. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about, a disaster shelter?
Well, we do have a separate area for the first aid and the spiritual counselors, social workers. So they have their area, which of course is private. So they can get whatever they need, whatever services, in a more private situation.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know that Red Cross, they provide mental health even after a disaster. A lot of people need that mental health. So do you get a lot of people that after a disaster happens, they're frazzled and they accept the mental health help that we have?
Well, what we do after the disaster's over, people are heading back to their homes. We give them information, and we also have them registered with our RedCross chapter here. And then we have resources. We have tons of resources that we can give to the person if they need mental health, what facilities are taking them in for free or low cost. And we have housing and clothing places that donate. So we have a lot of resources that we give to people after the disaster.
Thank you, Heather. Hi, Tracy. This is Tracy Elder, and I'm going to ask you, what do you do for the Red Cross?
Well, one of the things that I do is recruit volunteers to be a part of our biomedical department. Our volunteers go out to all of our blood drives, and they greet and thank blood donors who donate blood, as well as cover our juice and cookie table.
And today you're at this disaster shelter exercise, and you recruited actors to simulate certain situations, to give the staff and volunteers practice as to what to do when clients come in, correct?
Correct, I did, yes. I reached out to Cheyenne High School, which is not too far from this location. The advisor, Derek Riddle, I asked him if he would be able to support our efforts with his leadership group, and they answered the call.
Awesome. And how has the experience been?
It has been great. They are so on point. I love working with these kids. They've been helping us for the last couple of months, and so we're excited for this partnership.
And how long do they have to be here to actually simulate the entire exercise?
I asked them to get here about 7:45. That was their check-in, and they will be here till about 12 o'clock. And then they have to go back to their school.
Okay. That's great to have a day off, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to Paula. So she's one of our actors from Cheyenne, correct?
Yes, from Cheyenne High School.
So how has your experience been in this whole shelter exercise?
It's actually cool to like witness what kind of goes on, because I've never really like been a part of anything like this. So it's a great opportunity to like open my mind, I guess, more to what happens in the like when disaster happens.
So have you ever been involved in a disaster?
No, I have never been involved in disaster.
No home fire or anything like that. So you're actually getting prepared. You're part of our preparedness. Is that Red Cross is always, wanting to be prepared, and also relief, and then they're thereafter as well. So how early did you have to be here today?
Like Tracy said, we had to be here at 7:45, and we didn't actually start acting until like at about 9:30. But before that, we were helping the staff like get everything in place and stuff like that.
So what kind of materials did they give you to act this out, these situations out?
To act, they gave us little cards with scenarios, and it was just like names and what our problem was, and then we had to just go from there.
Have you had any acting classes before?
No, I've never had any acting classes. It was kind of like weird to like just jump into it.
So what kind of situation did you have on the card?
So the first one, I was a mom, family of 5. We all had the flu except for my 5-month-old, and then we were all sent to the hotel because we couldn't stay here so we wouldn't affect everybody else. And then my second card, I think I was single. My name was Alice. I was out of control. Then they sent me to the mental health department, and they calmed me down, and I just went back in there and just got my cot and everything. And I think that I only had 2 scenarios today.
Only 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So all in all, it was a great experience for you?
Yeah, it was really great, and it was really cool to see everybody working. Like, there's different people like in charge of different areas. It was cool to see.
Awesome. And what would you want to be when you grow up?
I actually want to be a doctor. Something pediatrician. I just don't know what kind of pediatrician yet.
And a Red Cross volunteer, right?
Yes, and a Red Cross volunteer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have concluded going behind the scenes at a Red Cross Las Vegas shelter here at the Silver Mesa Recreational Center. We have shown you that Red Cross, once again, is the expert in disaster preparedness, disaster relief, and disaster recovery. So we are ready for anything that may come our way as far as the disaster, and ready to help the members of the community stay safe.